Welcome to the Faith on the Homefront podcast. We are wrapping up our series tonight, and I have Corky and Suzanne White with me as we're going to be talking about ministry in our homes and ministry through our homes. And so I just want to start with, for you all, has there been a couple, or has there been someone that has invested in you as you moved into your marriage and kind of helped mentor or model for you what home life might look like?
I'd say thinking about the way that we leverage our home or the place where we live in order to have outreach with other people, I always think back to my parents and the way that they would open our house to guests. You know, we would have people over many Sundays after church, people from our church. If there was visitors, we would have them over, but we'd usually share a meal at the house with them. And then another thought that comes to mind is when I was in the youth group at Colonial Baptist, every Sunday night, our youth group would go to a parent's house. Huh. So I would get to see lots of different houses, lots of different families, and see how they kind of open their house to our youth group.
So you saw hospitality modeled very well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had my mom and dad and sister and I grew up in a very small home, and so there wasn't a lot of room for other people, but my parents did a good job of ministering to neighbors. My mom was really good at putting together a meal really quickly for a neighbor who was sick or something like that. And then the time that we had at both of my grandparents' homes, they were really good at having people over, and there were people coming and going all the time. One of my grandmothers, she had the nations with their feet under her table, and so I was always exposed to people of other cultures and ideas, and that just meant a lot to me, the way that they modeled that for us.
It sure helps you kind of have a perspective beyond what your life, and there's a whole world out there when you see the people who are just passing through and stopping, get a chance to visit with them. Yeah. I know for us early on in our marriage, I began teaching a young married Sunday school class, but we had a kind of a mentor couple that participated in that, and they had 2 or 3 children, and we would go to their home. They would host Bible studies for us and all, but it was neat just seeing them interact at home as they would carry on normal life leading up to and leaving that Bible study time, but seeing just a couple living life together. And not everyone's parents and their family looks the same, and for some, they may not be a great model, but to have within the body of Christ that modeling and that opportunity to see that is powerful. So as you all have been having children and raising your daughters, what are some opportunities that you remember capitalizing on as you were kind of getting a chance to model for them what you've seen modeled?
Well, our time hosting groups in our house, people in our house, happened so much before our children came along. We actually talked about it early on. We said one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did was have our children involved in that ministry with us in that kind of a fellowship or that kind of context. And so rather than use them as an excuse to not have people over,
that's easy to do.
Yeah, we would just let them be in the flow, in with that time. And I think that it was a great decision. Our 3 girls love having people over. We'd love to fellowship in our house, and they count that up as part of their ministry as well.
Is there a week that goes by that you all don't have at least somebody at your house?
Sometimes, but not often.
Not often, yeah. It just seems like, just from what little I see and hear, there's almost always someone that you're ministering to in some way.
During this time, it's been a little bit more difficult to have people physically present, but you remember the missionaries, the Rices that were here a couple of weeks ago. We were supposed to have them over. It fell through for some reason, and we actually got to Zoom with them for about 2 hours a couple of nights ago, and it was almost like having someone in our home to fellowship. So it was a lot of fun. We had the opportunity to pray, and we prayed all around our circle in our house, starting with Adeline, ending with me. And then they both prayed for us before we got off Zoom, so we were able to do that. And it made me hungry to have people in our house more.
But at the same time, think about the opportunity that we now have, that we're now more aware of being able to connect with people all over. And as we talked about last night, the ministry definition we were going by was encouraging other believers. Now it's happening through your home, but you're able to encourage people all over the world. We don't have to stop at who can come to our door and come in our home, but there's an encouragement we can have. Paul was an encourager through letters, and he did that frequently. But you just now were describing him being able to encourage someone who wasn't even in town. I think you've even told me about sometimes you've had a chance to minister on the other side of the world through Zoom. What was that like?
Just about every week, we'll have a Zoom call with people in a handful of different countries all over the world, all different time zones. And it's funny because when we try and schedule the next one, we always have to worry about the dateline and knowing if it's going to be the next day.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that really 2 a.m.?
Yeah.
What time is this?
Yeah. And those times are completely worth any kind of sleep deprivation. Like, you've got to get up at 4 a.m. because you know that's when your brothers and sisters on the other side of the world are available. And our girls have asked to get up. They're like, let us know when you're doing that, you know, or they'll be there late in the evening when there's training going on. And they love it too. Like, they're hearing interpretation going on from other languages, and they're exposed to it a lot. So they do a good job of both hosting in, but also kind of hosting around virtually. They'll make sure things are quiet. They'll make sure that that they're paying attention. So there's a modeling that happens on both sides of that, which is really cool.
Neat. Yeah. Now, I know also you're both involved in some discipling some other people and encouraging them, in sometimes couples, sometimes just you and a young lady, or sometimes you and a guy, but sometimes it's together. What's that been like for you as a couple, as you are growing in your marriage, but also encouraging others?
We love to have people in our home if we can for that kind of counseling, the couples counseling before marriage or during. It's fun to have them in that setting so they can kind of see another side of us. We can act one way, when we're in front of people in a church or in an office building or even in Starbucks. But when you get to someone's home, you really get to know who they are, and you can see where their priorities are. And so that's one of the things that I think that we feel that we need to model to them as well. Hopefully that will be passed on into future generations. But we meet weekly with people that we disciple in our homes, in our home or in their homes. Richie is one of the guys I disciple, and he's actually hosting guys' Bible study in his house on Saturday mornings. And so I've gotten to see that modeled. He saw that modeled in me, and now he's replicating that as well. So what about you?
I think I would probably say the same. It's been an interesting journey to open up our home and open up our lives to other people on an intimate level. Like, they see, if the kids come through and something happens and I have to stop and parent, I just have to stop and parent. And that's part of life. And they see how Corky and I interact with each other, and it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, it's just the norm. And I think that there's value in that. I've had couples that have been very transparent with me, and the way as we've walked through marriage and having kids, and gotten really good advice from them on you fit these gifts that God's given you into your life. You don't revolve your life around those children, and so then you do see how it all fits together. And Jesus knew exactly what he was doing when he gave the Great Commission, because he knew that as his disciples went and made disciples, that it would cause accountability in their lives. And that accountability for us in our marriage has been a gift. It's been sanctifying, but it's been good. I mean, if you're going to model Christ to somebody, you better be on your A game. You have to lean on him heavily for grace, and to give grace and model that for each other. So it's been good.
You mentioned giftings, and I think that's an important thing to highlight, because it's easy to start looking at maybe the way you all are, and God's using your gifts to minister and to disciple, but then to stop and think, yes, we're all called to minister and disciple, but it may look different. It may leverage different spiritual gifts that we have, different temperaments we have, different ways that we interact. So it may not look just like your household or mine. And for us, and the way My children are gifted in the way they enjoy doing things. I get a chance to minister with them. Like today, my oldest has been playing guitar for a few years, and she comes on Wednesdays and helps me lead our chapel service, and helps us lead that for our preschool, our kindergartners, another part of our school, our learning center. And then on other days of the week, on Thursdays, the other girls kind of rotate, come through and help. Well, that's part of their ministry, or they're serving. I have one of mine that's serving in the library at times, and ministering and encouraging in those ways. And we get a chance to do a lot of those things together. But again, that's their gifting, their bent, and recognizing we all have different gifts and abilities and personalities. And how does that come into play as we minister and as we encourage other believers? Think for a second about your children. I'll put you on the spot a little bit, but your children, think about each of your daughters and their personalities. Have there been times where you've seen ways that you're kind of nudging one direction because of her gifts as she ministers to other believers in a specific that fits her and her style?
Yeah. I think Autumn, our oldest, she doesn't realize that she's good at communicating with people younger than her. She has certain things that she enjoys doing, and she wants to be a self-proclaimed, introvert. But I see her thrive when she gets to teach others, and so I see that in her. And I don't know how the Lord's gonna work that out in her life, but I've seen it come to fruition in Belize on a mission trip. She was able to teach a Bible story, and a girl came to Christ.
Wow.
It's that kind of thing. And she I think it shocked her as well. There's things that God designs us with that sometimes He reveals over time, and I think
and we might be blind to it for a little while.
Yeah, and that's okay. I think we run to the edge of the light that He gives, and then we trust Him with it. So
let's take each step.
In the same way, Olivia's kind of behind the scenes, finding the best part of someone and just highlighting that for them, or building confidence in other people. She's really great at that. And Adeline she's just out in front. I mean, if anyone needs entertainment, Adeline's out there in front to kind of get the crowd going. But I think one of the beautiful things, and this kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier, is as many different ways as there are in our body for people to show the love of Christ to someone else, there are as many different types of those people that need to receive love in that way as well. And that's just a really neat way that the Lord works the body of Christ together. As many different personalities as there are in people who are wanting to show love or to minister in some way, there are people that need to receive that in that way as well. And one of the benefits, I think, and a blessing, kind of a side benefit to hosting people in our house, especially loving on students in our singles ministry at GBC and college and career, is our girls get the opportunity to see to see a whole lot of different people and how they interact and learn how to love on them in different ways. And so I'm hoping that this is something that we've modeled that they'll multiply into their life as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for the Faith in the Home Front series. Thank you, Corky and Suzanne, for joining me, and just have a great week.